up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We have a quick episode for you guys today, a quick YouTube exclusive because our Washington Commanders are moving and shaking at the crack of dawn. Within the last hour, they had announced the following roster moves. They had signed cornerback Isang Basie, cornerback Antonio Hamilton Sr., and linebacker Duke Riley. That signing that was announced yesterday. They released defensive end Villami Fehoko Jr., cornerback Allen George, and linebacker Dominique Hampton. And then they also placed tackle Lucas Niang and cornerback Kevon Seymour on the reserve injured list. So out of all those moves that I just ran off, the most news-provoking and the biggest news out of the ones that I just listed off was the fact that the Commanders departed and released linebacker Dominique Hampton, the 2024 draft pick of the Washington Commanders, 5th round pick, 161. And he has the undistinguishable honor of being the first draft pick that AP has made as the general manager of the Washington Commanders that the team has ended up parting with. Now, I will say this. You did not have to be Nostradamus to see this coming. You did not have to be Nostradamus to see this coming, because if you watch the preseason game on Friday, you can be the most casual of ball knowers to see that Dom Hampton struggled mightily out there against third and fourth stringers on Friday night. And for a guy that Adam Peters has spent draft pedigree on, that wasn't a positive sign, to say the least. That wasn't a positive sign, to say the least. Quickly, before I get too deep, to give you a timestamp as I do for all of my videos, today is Monday, August the 11th, and the Commanders are about a week away from their Week 2 matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. So as they prep for their Week 2 matchup, you know they were watching the film, and they saw Dom Hampton struggle. So not only the defensive side of the ball, but in the kickoff coverages and the special team coverages as well, and said, yeah, something has to be done. Something has to be done. Now, getting back to the likes of Dom Hampton, right? This is the guy that was always a mid-round draft pick, right? And I say that to say that the chances of him coming and being some big superstar or instant contributor, those were never really high. Those were never really high. But what you can hope from those mid to late round draft picks is that you can get essential depth pieces and cheap talent in the back end of your roster that can essentially help you on the special teams and help you when you have an injury to one of your top guys and things of that nature. But Dom Hampton just never resulted in being that guy. He never resulted in being that guy. And I don't want to sound like Mel Kiper or Todd McShay, but I was never super high on him coming out of the University of Washington in the 2024 draft. The reason that I say this is that Dom Hampton was a fifth-year player, and that kind of goes along with the trend that we've seen over the course of the last 2 years with Adam Peters' draft picks, where he tends to go to older prospects. Even a guy like Jaden Daniels is an older prospect who spent 5 years in college and things of that nature. But Dom Hampton, the thing that stuck out to me compared to other Washington Commander draft picks of the last 2 years is that he wasn't really good in college until his 5th year. And I believe a lot of that was him being a product of the system, being on that talented University of Washington team that ended up making the national championship in the 2023 season. So he was always a product of his environment to me as a prospect. And then, you know, I got a little curious. And I got a little excited when we drafted him in the 5th round of the 2024 draft, because while I didn't necessarily love him as a prospect, I know the affinity that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters had for big safeties. And at the time coming out of the draft, that's what Dom Hampton was being pegged as, as a big in-the-box type safety that can help contribute in the run game, that had questionable movement skills, questionable coverage skills, to say the least. And then, you know, when we brought him in and it was reported that he was actually going to be playing the off-ball linebacker in the middle linebacker position, I was like, that's a little interesting, because it showed that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters and Joe Witt, to add on to it, it showed that those guys saw the limited movement skills that he had. They saw the limited coverage ability that he had. and thought that he might have been better suited in the NFL at the linebacker position. And so far, through a year and one preseason game of his NFL career, that just hasn't panned out. That just hasn't panned out. This is a guy that was essentially on practice squad for the majority of his rookie season last season. And then, this was a big preseason and this was a big off season for him. And I promise you, I'm not trying to bash Dom Hampton by any means. But go back and look at that film on Friday. That's some of the worst linebacking play that you're going to see in the NFL from somebody donning an NFL uniform. And, this is a guy that has been playing safety for majority of his life and is still learning the linebacker position. So it wasn't necessarily a surprise to me. It wasn't necessarily a surprise to me, just as his release isn't a surprise to me either. Because with this move on the line of other moves that Adam Peters has made over the course of his tenure as the Washington Commanders general manager, he's showing you that if you're not cutting it, AP going to get you out of here. AP is going to make you pack your bags. He showed it last year with the likes of Jahad Dotson. But in Dom Hampton's case, the thing that makes this interesting is this is the first time that he's actually doing this with a player that he spent draft pedigree and draft allocation on. So it shows that even with his guys, the guys that were deemed to be his guys that he brought in under his regime, if you're not cutting it, he's going to get you out of there. And I think this begs the question because, we're a team, let AP cook over here, let Adam cook. Is this Adam Peters' first miss? Is this Adam Peters' first miss as the general manager of the Washington Commanders? And I'll say, as far as the draft goes, absolutely. As far as the draft goes, absolutely. Because while this was only a 5th round pick, you still there's 5th round contributors across the league in tenfold. There's 5th round contributors around the league all over the place. And just to hear that Dom Hampton didn't end up being that guy, kind of wipes away the majestic 100% track record that I believe Adam Peters has had over the course of, his 2 drafts with the Washington Commander. But all in all, this was a guy that was an older prospect coming out, never really broke out until his age 23 season in college. Then he was drafted to the Washington Commanders and was essentially a tweener. Think of Sua Cravens in his time with the Washington Commanders, where you don't move fast enough, you don't move well enough, and your coverage skills aren't adequate enough for you to play in the back end of an NFL secondary, and you're not big enough to play in the box at that second level, at that linebacking position. I think that was just the story of Dom Hampton's career as the Washington Commanders. So it's unfortunate to see because I want all my guys to hit. And I know a guy like Dom Hampton actually built a rapport and had a nice relationship with Bobby Wagner. If you could go back to one of the NFL mic'd up videos, Bobby Wagner, he actually gave the game ball that he fumbled or the fumble that he recovered against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He actually gave that ball to Dom Hampton just, to show that, he's rocking with the youngster and he has a lot of faith in him. And I didn't know if that was going to result in Dom Hampton ultimately goodwilling and team morale his way into a roster spot for yet another season, a la Sam Hartman. But that performance on Friday left a sour taste in a lot of guys' mouth, and it's evident that it left a sour taste in Adam Peters' mouth as well. So that's it for this video. 2024 draft pick Dom Hampton is released by the Commanders. We signed 2 cornerbacks and off-ball linebacker Duke Riley. I believe that the cornerback signings in Isang Bassi and Antonio Hamilton are special teams signings because my eyes almost burnt watching that special team coverage amongst the kickoff coverage and the punt coverage on Friday. But I also think that it's depth signings with, the injuries to Kevon Seymour and Bobby Price as well. So super excited to see what comes out of this, to see if any of these guys have a chance to make the final 53 roster at the end of training camp or at the end of the official preseason. But that'll do it for today's video. 2024 draft pick safety slash linebacker Dom Hampton has been released by the Washington Commanders. And I beg the question, is this Adam Peters' first miss? Let me know in the comments below. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and comment in the sections because you know I love chopping it up with you guys in the Washington Commanders community. And I'll check in on y'all on the flip side. Peace.